Hello everyone, my name is Kieran Trainer and welcome to my video. In this audio essay, I will be discussing two theories that attempt to summarize every story plot ever, and I will also briefly discuss a few basic themes and conventions that appear throughout genres and movies to make the plot more interesting and comprehensible. First, I shall talk about Zetsun Todorov, a man with many talents, proposed a theory stating that every single story follows a 5-part structure. This structure will seem familiar to many, as it is used frequently, not only in literature, but in media. This is not to say necessarily that every story or plotline follows Todorov's theory. The first step in his theory would be equilibrium, for example, an ordinary day for a man travelling to work perhaps. Then there's a disruption in the balance. This could be anything that interrupts or changes the equilibrium. The next step would be recognition of the disruption, then an attempt to fix it. The final step would be a return to the newfound equilibrium, whether it's the same as before or slightly different somehow. So, does this theory even work? Let us find out. The first movie I will test this theory against will be Chronicle. Equilibrium would be when Andrew, Matt and Steve stumble across an extraterrestrial object and obtain special abilities. The three have fun. They bond as their powers get stronger. The disruption would be when Andrew starts getting out of control and abusing his powers. The recognition comes when Andrew accidentally kills Steve out of rage, and Matt attempts to stop him or at least help, to no avail. He is forced to kill Andrew to prevent the destruction of Seattle and the harm to the people within it. Equilibrium restored? I will now test this theory on 2 other movies, but not to the same length, as you can probably understand without all the insignificant details. Jumper follows this theory probably the best out of all 3 movies. David has a power and is trying to get a girlfriend. That's the equilibrium. Some evil people try to kill him. That's the disruption. Then he obviously recognizes that people are trying to kill him, tries to escape. He does in the end by trapping them far, far away. And then equilibrium is restored. He has a girlfriend, which is the only difference. Okay, the final movie is called About Time. Tim finds out that he has a special ability running through the males in the family. It's time travel. His dad tells him on his 18th birthday. We watch Tim live his life, reliving any moment that went wrong and fixing them. He doesn't abuse this power, but he does manage to get a good education, get his dream job, and his dream woman. I wonder how. The disruption occurs when his sister is involved with a car crash, and Tim travels back to prevent it from happening. When he arrives back to present day, he notices that his child has been changed, and that is because he went back before the conception of the child. So he needed to go back again and prevent him from preventing his sister's car crash. Thankfully, she recovers quick. However, this is only halfway through the movie, and the theory clearly states that the whole story is around the theory. However, this is only halfway through the movie, and so perhaps Todorov's theory does not work for About Time. I shall now move on to the next theory, Vladimir Prop. Much like Todorov, Prop spent a very long time analysing stories, specifically Russian folktales. Props was certain that every single story had a specific set of characters that would have distinct functions to propel the story. These characters include the hero, the villain, the donor, the dispatcher, the false hero, the helper, the princess, and her father. In Chronicle, all but one of these characters appear, which is pretty good. Matt is the hero, Andrew is the villain. All 3 of them are donors. Steve is technically the dispatcher, Andrew is the false hero, Matt is the helper, and Casey is the princess. She doesn't have a father figure. Jumper and About Time both feature around the same amount of similar characters, which is pretty good, especially as Prop created his theory in 1920. I am now going to briefly talk about the basic themes and conventions of various genres. The loss of innocence, revenge, death, conflict, individuality versus society, triumph over adversity, love conquers all, and good versus evil. These themes show up a lot in science fiction and thriller genres, most probably the majority of genres actually. Most prominent in Chronicle, all but one of these themes appear within the movie. Good versus evil, the loss of innocence, revenge, and individuality versus society are all very prominent and recurring themes. Death appears in 2 very important scenes, and conflict is built up and appears the most at the end of the movie, along with triumph over adversity. Love conquers all is the only one that does not appear, as there really isn't a happy ending. These themes do also appear in Jumper and About Time. However, they are hidden beneath a lot of plot points, and some are very vague compared to others inside the movies. To conclude, I believe that Todorov's theory works more compared to Props's. It's most probably because Todorov's theory is relatively vague in comparison. It follows the stories because if the story didn't include these key moments, then it wouldn't be enticing, not a good story at all. I'd also say that props theory is great because it actually does work really well, even though it's quite specific and a century old. As stories and movies adapt through decades, this theory still holds strong. Now to conclude about the themes and conventions, I am very glad to have research into this, as I feel like this is what makes a movie. You can't have a genre without its specific themes, as the story would just be bad. It would lack a lot. I will use my research and my conclusion in my final major project to improve it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this has somewhat informed you on Todorov's and Props' theory and the basic themes and conventions of a wide variety of genres.